Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. How do you quantum jump? That is the question we're asking today. We have discussed quantum jumping several times on the podcast, but I have never created an episode on how to quantum jump. Quantum jumping is a particular technique that you can use to shift into other realities. There are multiple ways in which you can quantum jump into realities. I have given several different meditations using a couple of different techniques, but I wanted to dedicate an episode that you can use to follow instructions that give you ways to quantum jump into another reality. Quantum jumping has completely and totally changed my life. Using these techniques has allowed for me to completely transform my business, to find love, and heal me in a variety of ways. Everybody wants to put the word quantum in front of everything they do. There's a quantum real estate in my town. There's a quantum coffee. There's quantum activations, quantum healing, hypnosis. Sometimes we throw that word out and it becomes insignificant. Or just a keyword tag that's put on videos to get more people to click. When I'm talking about quantum jumps, in particular, I'm talking about a utilization of our understanding of quantum science in aiding me to shift into other realities. Consider the idea that many times, possibly every time that you make a decision, you are actually moving between alternate realities, between parallel worlds. In those alternate realities, there is another possible you, who you can connect with so strongly that the conscious awareness and energy that is you now literally moves into that other reality. When feeling so strongly connected to another self in a different reality, it is possible through energy to gain direct access to the knowledge available only in that time and space, and to experience an entirely different self and to actually enter into that reality. What makes quantum jumping possible is that, like a quantum particle, every person has the ability to exhibit quantum behavior. I was excited to hear in a recent interview with Lynn McTaggart that more and more scientists are finding evidence that quantum behavior on a micro scale is now being reflected on a macro scale, meaning what we're seeing in the quantum world is actually reflected in our macro world. While it may seem improbable that you can do the things that quantum particles can do, such as tunnel through solid barriers or make quantum jumps to other alternate times and places, our current understanding of physics now suggests such things are within the realm of possibility and can be expected to occur. Experimental observations at the quantum level have changed our assumptions about reality as we see them. Quantum particles are not always particles and sometimes exist as pure energy within an information field. Some kind of invisible connection exists between entangled quantum particles, so they move together simultaneously with non-local, what they call spooky action at a distance. Simply by observing an experiment, we are affecting it, and unlike classical physics, quantum behaviors can only ever be predicted by probabilities. With all these new understandings of quantum jumping, it means that experiencing a quantum jump can mean we're entering another parallel reality. By relaxing and imagining that we are accessing some kind of bridge, window, or doorway, or experiencing an energetic burst which pushes us into another world with another self who has another set of characteristics, qualities, identity, or skills. With quantum jumping, one makes the leap from simply imagining oneself in an alternate reality to actually being that other self. So in some ways, when I'm using discussion of quantum jumping, it sounds a lot like the discussion of Neville Goddard when he says you can shift into another state and that state becomes a reality. What's happening with our understanding of quantum science is we're starting to scientifically understand what is happening when Neville Goddard identifies that we can move into another state. Now, in order to understand quantum jumps, we should try to appreciate what quantum actually means. The word quantum in the field of physics is defined as being a discrete quantity of energy, proportional in magnitude to the frequency of the radiation it represents. And quantum mechanics is defined as the branch of mechanics that deals with the mathematical description of the motion and interaction of subatomic particles, incorporating the concepts of quantization of energy, wave-particle duality, the uncertainty principle, and the correspondence principle. The whole reason that quantum physics has been studied is to understand the very nature of reality. And the more that we study smaller and smaller particles on a quest to understand nature and the world, the more we understand about life itself. We have discovered several times in science on several different levels that what is happening on the smallest scale tends to be happening on the largest scale. And so I have learned to treat myself as a subatomic particle. That's essentially what I am. I am a subatomic particle. When I embrace this fact that I am a subatomic particle, then that means that I can experience the different elements that are related to quantum particles. First of all, there's a quantum superposition. It's a fundamental principle in quantum mechanics by which all possibilities for something in material form exist simultaneously in all possible particular states or all possible configurations of its properties. But whenever measured or observed, the result corresponds to only one of those possible states or configurations. I know on episodes like this, we always end up talking about the same things, but what we understand in studying quantum physics is that an element of light can exist both as a particle or as a wave. In the wave form, it exists with all the multiple possibilities available to it. And this element of light can exist in both the state of particle or wave. There's also quantum coherence. It's a basic principle in quantum mechanics by which any given quantum system, all parts of that system remain in perfect synchronization with one another. Then there's quantum entanglement. There is a level of interconnectedness by which quantum particles move in simultaneous synchronization, even when separated by distance in space. There's also quantum tunneling. It's a quantum mechanical effect in which particles have a finite probability of crossing an energy barrier, such as the energy needed to break a bond with another particle, even when that quantum particle's energy is less than the energy barrier, because matter is both particle and wave. Something can exist on one side of a barrier, then exist in energy wave form, and then be observed on the other side of the barrier. We also have quantum teleportation. It's a term used to describe instantaneous transference of properties from one quantum system to another without physical contact. All of these elements are directly related to my own conscious experience of moving through realities when I understand that I am a subatomic particle. When we follow quantum physics, we can see that a quantum element or particle can jump from one place to another. They don't move around. They jump from one place to another. And prior to that event, generally there is an increase in energy. So using these understandings, I started to apply them in my life, treating myself as a subatomic particle and utilizing this understanding to shift into different realities, different dimensions, different timelines, I've had some tremendous validating experiences. One thing I've struggled with in having a channel on YouTube is sharing my own manifestation stories, because I was taught by a mentor not to share my success stories. When I had shifted into a reality not to tell anybody about it, not to even discuss it with anybody, because as soon as I did, I'd find myself sometimes shifting back into the other reality. But I've had so many different experiences that I'm going to share some with you. So I had a situation in my business where I essentially had to do all of the grunt work, very technical, keyboard related, information entry work. It was dreadfully boring for me. And while I found it meditative and tried to embrace the moment as much as I could, it was relentless, and I wanted to shift into a reality where I could still be making the same amount of money and not doing the same amount of work. And I had tried everything. I'd looked into different opportunities, maybe different jobs, and I still needed to maintain this business because I was co-partnered with someone else that I needed to continue with. There was no way for me to just shut down the business and go somewhere else. So in meditation, I imagined myself having the same job, looking in my bank account and receiving money as I normally did, but then going throughout my day, not having to work, enjoying the television, going for a walk, going on vacation. And I continued to imagine those things as if I had already experienced this newfound freedom that I was looking for. I continued to imagine this. I continued to imagine different experiences, but I would have no success. Didn't seem to be working for me. So I took what I understood from quantum physics and began to create an energetic framework around my periods of visualization and imagination. Later, I found out that Neville Goddard had recommended this technique. He recommends getting yourself into an intensified state with your breathing where you essentially explode into the new reality. I started to understand there was an energetic component related to my ability to shift. So I started doing Qigong exercises. I started doing a modified form of the 5 Tibetans, which involved spinning clockwise in place with my hands extended, then doing leg lifts, then doing an extension, stretching my back from a seated position, and then doing what is essentially sun salutations, some form of that involved a very moderate stretching program where I was activating different parts of my body, moving around. I was later given verification of this from Cynthia Sue Larson, who wrote her book on quantum jumps, that energy is the key ingredient. So I would do these energy exercises, and then I would go into the meditation period. While in that period, I would bring up what I was imagining. I'd make it as rich as possible. I would intensify it. I would really start to feel it. The feeling element I knew was important because I had already read Feeling is the Secret by then. I hadn't fully been exposed to Neville Goddard by then, but I knew that there was an obvious feeling component to this shifting that I had to do. And then I would do a breathing technique that would amplify the energy in my body. I found after doing some Joe Dispenza meditations that squeezing my muscles and aligning my body in the proper way, I could pull the energy up, much like a straw, sucking the energy up into my head. And I could do heavy, deep breathing. I had tried Wim Hof technique. I had tried just deep, deep breathing, concerted breathing, and fire breathing through my nose. I had found that breathing was a powerful conduit to create this explosive energy. Sometimes you can combine Qigong, sometimes not, but I would have this energetic event. In some ways, it was symbolic. It was telling my body and consciousness a time and place where the shift was going to happen. In my mind, as I understood the quantum world, as I researched it more and more, I understood that it had to be instantaneous, that I was not traveling at 60 miles per hour from one place to another, taking 10 hours, however the distance is. It was an instantaneous shift. And the only way I could do that was to get the rocket fuel and move myself from one place to another. So I would do that. And so I would imagine in my business being free and having to do this. And I did an energetic shift. I was exhilarated. I had a feeling come into my stomach, a feeling of happiness, of relaxation. A feeling of freedom started to overtake me for no particular reason, because I had to go back to work. I had to sit down on my computer and start working as soon as I had done that meditation. In fact, I had lost time by doing the meditation. I was so voracious for time that I never even had enough time to properly sleep 8 hours, because I had to sit on my computer and just work. And it was just entering information. I knew when I came out of this meditation that I was in a different reality. And then I got a phone call. Somebody said, "Hey, my friend needs to do some extra work and was wondering if maybe you could do some work for them." I had not considered having anybody work, because it was the sort of job I would have to have complete trust in this person. And I started talking to them on the phone, and they were willing to do the work that I was doing without very much of a cost. I could charge them per order that I did. So built in with what I was able to pay them, I wasn't going to lose anything. And it was a mild amount. And so within a week, after doing some quick training, I had somebody doing the job that I was doing essentially. And now I had more time. Suddenly I had this freedom upon me. Suddenly I had time to do some other things. And one of the people that I hired when that happened is doing the sound of this very video that you're hearing right now. As I had other things come up with customer service, I had a customer service person come into my sphere of influence, and I could have them take care of the customer service. And suddenly I was doing this job in a different way. Then there was another time when I had tried to move a candle that my girlfriend had in the kitchen. And the wax just came onto my hand, and it burned so bad, the flesh just came off, and it was bleeding, and it was looking so terrible that I was genuinely concerned that I was going to have permanent damage to my hand. At a minimum, it would be scarred for life. There was simply no way that something like this would heal. It appeared to be a 3rd-degree burn, the worst kind of burn that you could have. So I did the meditation. I imagined my hand healed, and I gave myself components that indicated that it was in the future, but it felt like in the now, and I used this energetic component. I came out of it, and even though I could see the signs of my hand being still injured, I knew that it was healed. Very quickly, for some unknown reason, I got access to some medical grade honey, and I was using it, and it was healed within 3 or 4 days. I had never seen anything like that. It was healed. I've had situations where I've performed quantum jumps at the beginning of the day, and I was sick, coughing, sneezing, just feeling utterly terrible, getting sick. And I have jumped out of that and then came out of it and immediately felt better. I immediately felt better. So I started to experiment ways that I could shift and quantum jump, how much energy was needed, what techniques I could use. I tried a variety of different visualization and energetic techniques. I have documented some of those in previous episodes on how to shift into different realities. I experimented with isolation tanks and biofeedback machines, vibration tables, light shows, different musical frequencies, hanging upside down, anything that I could think of that would vastly change the energy in my body, I would play around with. In the process, even though I tried to make it more complicated, there's essentially two ways that you can quantum jump. The first is an instantaneous shift, and the second is a prolonged, casual jump. Each of them are jumps, but each of them work a little bit differently. In one of them, you are moving your physical, conscious body into the reality, and then you are living in that reality from that point forward. In another one, you are merging with your twin self in another reality, gaining information from it, and then applying it in your regular reality. Burt Goldman, an amazing writer and teacher of a variety of techniques, including Silva mind control method, wrote a book called Quantum Jumping, and I'd totally recommend it. You can find some videos of Burt Goldman on the internet, and he did a class with Mind Valley on quantum jumping. In particular, his technique involved using the intention and the baga, which indicated pressing the tongue into the roof of the mouth at the time that you're declaring your intention, and then visualizing a door or gateway, going through it, and then meeting a twin self version of yourself in the multiverse. So you meet a version of yourself that has found the perfect love, that is in perfect health, that is massively wealthy. You blend with them, you talk to them, you can even just completely become them in that moment and then come back. Many people have found great success, and I designed a couple of the quantum jumping meditations around merging with the quantum self. Eventually, I adapted the quantum jumping into quantum surfing, which is an ongoing movement, not just a shift. Your quantum jumping essentially is similar to jumping on a surfboard, and then you're riding a wave of energy. That's once you get way advanced when you're playing around with it. The key point I want you to understand is that it works. And there are multiple people that have found incredible ways for it to work in their life. I have been in a situation, for instance, where somebody that I was super attracted to, that I was dating, had said, I'm not really interested. I don't think this is going to work out. You don't need to call me. I just want to say it was nice to meet you. I did a quantum jump. I imagined that person and said to myself, you know what? It's not over. I could see that person calling me back. And I did it. I did the quantum jump. I'm now married to my wife. She did the same thing. She left me and came back to me. There are a variety of different stories, and I would love it if you could share your success stories in the comments. They're all related to anything that you want to shift into, and the reason that quantum jumping is powerful is it allows an energetic framework for you to do significant shifts. Quantum jumping is taking the same ideas that we understand from the law of attraction and also adding an element to it. Now that we understand how the multiverse works, when you're in that meditation, you can shift immediately. Now, there are a variety of different means that you can use in the quantum jumping meditation that I believe are pretty effective. Sometimes combining these makes it even more effective. The first is what is called the plait or energy braid, which is discussed in reality transurfing. Reality transurfing is an operating system that talks about shifting into different realities. Reality transurfing has a thesis that there is an alternative space of information that you're maneuvering through, and in that process, you shift into different realities. In the more advanced transurfing work, there is an energetic braid that is talked about that essentially is attached to the back of your head, but you feel it between your shoulder blades behind your head. What happens is, when you shift into a new reality, it's like you're uploading a new movie for your new reality. It's like you're in an archive of eternal possibilities And if you were to load up a new film reel in the archive of eternity, it would be placed within the plat behind you. So there's these amazing techniques that are taught where people will sit and they will visualize, and at the time of quantum jumping, they can feel an energy behind them that activates like a tail, and they drop it into the braid. And many people have found great success in doing this. A second technique that I have found fairly powerful is the Merkaba technique. That is a visualization of your light body and its proper spinning. Check out my Merkaba meditation and Drunvalo Melchizedek's The Flower of Life, which discusses the very nature of this Merkaba. Once you have a spinning Merkaba, it's like you're in a spaceship. And for some reason, when I have a spinning, functioning, activated Merkaba within a meditative state, I find it very easy to instantly teleport to any place and time. In some of my meditations, you may find that I take you places. That's me trying to speak to another part of your mind. In reality, we don't really travel any places once we move to these higher densities. We are able to instantly teleport to any location in the universe, in time and space. And we are learning this very basic skill when we're doing these quantum jumps, because it is a location that we are moving to at the same time as being a feeling and vibration. I also like to think of it as a location, and I'm pushing my energy out and moving my consciousness to another body. So a couple of bits of advice. Once you do the shift, there appears to be a common, normal, ordinary process that occurs. One of them is you'll be given some evidence that the shift didn't work. Almost immediately, within a few days, something will come up that seemingly is trying to tell you, yeah, this didn't work. Your response to this moment is very important. If you believe that you're in this new reality, you will disregard it. It will not be important. Usually it's once, maybe twice, but you'll be tested. You have to maintain and continue with an identity and feeling that you shifted into that reality, and that you will begin to look for evidence of this shift. Immediately start to look for evidence of the shift. You'll see little things, and eventually you'll get confirmation for the shift. Look for the confirmation and understand, once you've done the shift and you've aligned your energy with the future reality that you're quantum jumping into, as Neville Goddard explains, there's a bridge of incidents that still sometimes has to occur between where you're at and where you're going to be. And sometimes that can involve losing things, and some unfortunate things happen. You lose your house, you end up with a better one later on. All you have to do is move and quantum jump, and then you remain in a knowingness, a feeling that it's done. You assume that everything's working to your advantage towards this jump. If anything pops up, everything's working to my advantage. Everything is working to your advantage. Every show that comes on TV, every song that you hear, every person that you meet, every wrong turn, every mishap, every misunderstanding, all of it is working to your advantage because you are in this reality. You know in your heart that you're already in this new timeline, and now you're seeing your version of events happen prior to that occurrence. You're a time traveler that already knows what's happening in the future. You can easily shift and quantum jump your way back and have a transition back to the old reality. So what often happens is that people will be tested. They'll have something come up. They'll immediately assume, well, that shift didn't work, and they'll still follow that line of thinking, and they'll say, you know, that quantum jumping, it never seems to work for me. So we've talked about a couple of different techniques. Using meditation, bringing up your energy, and then jumping into the reality. And then at the next level, after you start using your energy and jumping into your reality, using your imagination, you can add the plat technique, or you can add the Merkaba technique. Those are effective. You can also visualize meeting your twin self and coming back. As you continue to do all of these things, it continues to move you into the same stable timeline that you want to be on, where amazing things happen. To go back, here's another success story for myself. I was a huge fan of so many great YouTube creators like Jake Ducey, Aaron Doty, and I was always like, I would love to be in a position where I could share my own spiritual learnings in a format just like that, that I could talk about what I was going through and maybe I could help some other people out. But of course, I had that voice, that fear voice that said, it'll be a waste of your time. YouTube is too competitive. You'll never have a chance at doing this. But I had experienced the power of my quantum jumps. So I used the quantum jump technique that I'm talking about. Using fire breathing, I imagined my video on YouTube. I imagined the number of subscribers. I imagined the comments that I had. I imagined all this stuff. And then I would go on about the world as if I was already a YouTube creator. When I started writing my book, I always felt like I was already a YouTube creator. I wrote my book before my YouTube channel ever started. So I knew this was going to happen. Now, there was a natural bridge of incidents because I had been jumping. I had before said, there's no way I know how to edit properly. I don't understand music. I was resistant to the technology. Next thing you know, my son is showing me how to use Photoshop, showing me how to use Adobe Premiere, how to add songs, how to acquire songs. It felt like within 3 or 4 days, I knew everything I needed to do, and it wasn't difficult. When the whole entire time, for years, I had viewed even creating a video that I would be proud of to put on YouTube as impossible. But I had jumped into this reality, and I was experiencing the lead up into what I had already quantum jumped into. And I knew that everything was working to my advantage. So people were coming into my space that could help me out. Next thing you know, the guy that works for me, that I had quantum jumped before, that helped me with my business, well, we had changed the business, so I didn't need him anymore. And I'm talking to him, and he does this amazing sound work. He's done the sound on every single one of my videos. And I could have somebody that could go through and modify and make the sound really stereo quality. So I was able to imagine my YouTube channel the way it is now, and I jumped into that reality, and it happened. I never thought I could write a book, could finish the book. I got distracted, or it's too difficult, or I had too much knowledge, or too much information, or I wouldn't find the right means to do it. And I restricted myself forever. And then I decided I'm going to quantum jump into this reality. I did all the things I'm talking about. I met my twin self that was a writer, talked to him, got to know myself. Then I quantum jumped into the reality that I was in, using all the techniques I mentioned. I saw myself as a writer. I saw my book on Amazon in my imagination. I saw the feedback that I had for the book. I saw my friends and family texting me, congratulating me on the publishing of my book. I saw messages coming into me from people on Instagram saying, hey, I read your book. All that stuff happened. Every single thing that I had quantum jumped into, it happened. Every single time I've done a quantum jump, particularly in the means and ways that I've mentioned to you, it's worked. And I've taught this to hundreds of people directly and thousands of people that follow my channel. And you can read the comments on those quantum jump videos, and amazing things are happening. The biggest advantage that I've found for quantum jumps has been money. That's always been the most amazing experience that I've had. Fast forward, and I've had another business, but that business got messed up, and I needed a loan, and it was going to go sideways, and I was going to owe more money, and suddenly something was going to happen where I was going to lose everything in a single month after I had built up my business. And I was scared. I was concerned that I was going to lose everything because it seemed so sudden and out of the blue, and I needed this money. So I did the quantum jump. And I used affirmations in that jump. I used the large sums of money affirmation. And I imagined that I was in a world that reflected what I was saying in the large sums of money affirmation. And then within a couple of days, I received a check in the mail for the exact amount of money for this huge payment I had to make, which in my mind, before I did the quantum jump, was impossible. But I was able to create that level of belief in me because I had also quantum jumped in the past. And I was expecting something to happen. After I came out of it, I felt good. It clicked. I wasn't as worried. I was relaxed. My shoulders were down. I wasn't constantly dwelling on it or thinking it. I was expectant that something was going to come up that was going to help me. And out of the blue, something amazing happened, and it totally helped me to do it. It is even more powerful when you start doing quantum jumps for other people, for other things, for other groups. It seems to be more effective and powerful. If you have an altruistic angle to it in any way where you're thinking outside of yourself into a more collective reality where something wonderful happens, I continue to be amazed at how this works. So it does work. So we've discussed a couple of different methods. There's the standard using breathing method, and then you can also add using the Platt or the Merkaba. Those techniques work, and they are enhanced by using Qigong beforehand. The second major way to do a quantum jump is through sleeping. Now, the craziest stories I have are from sleeping. In using the sleep meditation, you can induce a state of complete shift. It places you into an area where you can shift into your reality. What I have found in the quantum jumps is it's important prior to imagining that you go into a void-like state, a 0 point, as Frederick Dodson likes to call it in his book, Parallel Universes of Self. The 0 point is important. Dr. Joe Dispenza identifies this as the void. The reason this is important is that you are carrying realities with you everywhere you go. These are portions of your identity and who you are and what you expect to happen in the world. The major reason that most of us have struggles with some level of quantum jumping is because of all the baggage that we're carrying along. We identify so many things around our gender, our social status, the country we live in, our political beliefs. All of that is affecting your ability to quantum jump. And you have to bring all this stuff along when you quantum jump. Really effective quantum jumping requires you going through a vacuum of sorts into an infinite void. And you'll notice on many of my videos that I'll try to take you into a state where you try to clear your mind. The clearing is an important part because within this clearing where you let go of all the different labels and things that you identify yourself with, within that is the infinite possibilities of everything. That's the place where you can find that potential reality where you can quantum jump into. So I would identify with this void and then I would jump into it. You can effectively do this in a sleep state because you go into that void slowly and then be prompted to jump into the new reality once you create it. This is one reason that Neville Goddard continuously advocated for fulfilling your imaginational goals in a sleep state. Neville Goddard always recommended to fall asleep to the wish fulfilled. Now, this is very easy for people that struggle with visualization, and I know there are a lot of you that do that. When you're laying down in bed, you don't have to be seeing anything. Your eyes are closed. So you don't necessarily have to be visualizing anything. And while your eyes are closed, you can imagine anything around your environment. So while you lay there, you can imagine that you are in this other reality. This is very important. Now, people may struggle with the quantum jump as it's related to a waking quantum jump because in that state, the energy transfer is different. I have tried both techniques. I've done the energy jump while I'm sleeping and I'm having no problems sleeping. It doesn't affect me. There are people that may not want to get their energy amplified by doing exercises and stuff before they sleep because it will make it difficult for them to sleep properly. And in those particular cases, you can do it. Just symbolically give yourself a point within the meditation at the beginning while you're falling asleep where you are saying, I jumped into this reality. Sometimes I squeeze all my muscles or take a deep breath. It doesn't necessarily require the burst of energy. That becomes a symbolic anchoring point for you to do these shifts. Eventually, you're going to be so good at it that you can instantly shift with the snap of fingers. There's no requirement for you to even close your eyes or do anything. You can constantly shift and shift and shift. Right now at the kindergarten level of quantum jumping, you're learning how to shift into other realities and have confirmation. The final super important point about quantum jumping is do not talk about it with other people. I'm talking about this with you because I want to explain how to quantum jump. And I have shared some stories, and I've really never shared a lot of stories on my podcast before because I didn't want to jinx my own manifestations. And I don't recommend that you tell anybody about it. You will experience significant changes. Recently, I had the most amazing quantum jump. Now I'm going to tell you about it because I want you to know that it works. I was talking about my channel. My channel had not been doing as well, and I wasn't as happy with some different aspects of it, and I didn't quite know what to do, and was talking to my wife, and we were sitting there, and I said, I'm going to imagine the channel's doing great, and I'm going to imagine showing you my phone and YouTube Studio, and it says how well we're doing. And you're going to say, congratulations, and I'm going to hear your voice. I'm going to use the classic Neville Goddard style. So I sat down in the sun, did the Merkaba meditation for about 10 minutes, loading up and spinning my Merkaba. And then I started to do affirmations. And then I spent a little bit of time imagining. And then my wife and I imagined together. I held on to her hand and I did a quantum jump. And we went on, and I had never felt so good. I was walking around going, baby, I feel so good. I had been feeling quite different before that. And then within a couple of days, we had the exact same conversation that I had envisioned. I had a video do great, and I was super proud of it and super proud of some of the comments and how it had helped some people. And I was showing my wife and how it had worked out, and it was almost identical to what I had envisioned. And once again, I had confirmed that this works. And I've identified in my own life the pattern that is most successful is when I use an amplification of energy after going into a 0-point state. And I can also increase its effectiveness by using the Plat and the Merkaba when I'm doing my jumping. Or when I'm sleeping, I can go into a sleep meditation and really guide my subconscious. After you do a sleep quantum jump, I've had a couple of times when I woke up and I know for sure that I was in a different house. It was slightly different. My master bedroom was on a different part of the house. The first time it happened to me was at the very beginning. I had something similar. I was living in a house and it had changed, and I had all kinds of changes to my house, and I freaked out about it. And I remember, like, the next day, I'd come back and everything was gone, and I was remembering having these frustrations, and then it slipped away. Memory is a very weird thing when you're doing these quantum jumps. There'll be a point where you will remember everything, and you can choose to continue to remember both sides of both realities, but there's a point where you may lose memory of the old reality. And sometimes the shift is so perfect that you don't lose any memory, and you remember the new reality completely. There are times when you retain the memory of the old one. You will see differences in the reality that you shift into, particularly with deaths in celebrities' families or people that you're close to. After I had done the shift that I was just mentioning, I remember going on Facebook, and a close family friend, somebody I deeply care about, had posted a picture, and she was with her husband. And I was like, what? Her husband died. I sent her condolences. I remember sending her condolences and saying, I'm so sorry because this was a close friend of my family's. And now I'm pulling up her Facebook feed and her husband had never died and he had made a post a month ago and she had just posted a picture of them at home. That's when I knew that I had shifted. So I want you to look for those things as proof that you shifted, but don't scream it from the mountaintops. I believe strongly that the next important aspect as you get better and better at quantum jumping is a relationship with the higher self. As you get to know your higher self, you'll learn that there is this part of you that is protecting you and guiding you. And if you have not been successful in past quantum jumps, part of the reason may be that your higher self was protecting you. Understand that the higher self, as defined in the law of one, is a version of you billions of years in the future. Meaning, it's you. It's already lived this life before. It knows what happens. And in fact, in later law of one channelings in Quo, they indicate there's another version of the higher self in seventh density that is aware of all the realities. So there's a version of you that you have access to that knows all the possible things that can happen with every decision that you make. And there may be a quantum jump that would be so terrible for you if you were to do it successfully. And the higher self knows, it can see like a map what will happen, and it protects you. So as you get better and better at this, you find that the higher self becomes a role in how you're quantum jumping. You start to affirm the ways in which you jump that are smooth and easy, that you flow in divine harmony, and you start to get used to the process of shifting. It doesn't end up being an instantaneous because you're constantly shifting all the time, and you end up in a relationship with your higher self, allowing your higher self to guide you. Once you're in a powerful relationship with the higher self, you'll start to experience bigger shifts because your higher self will know what is acceptable for you, because your higher self doesn't want you to go insane where you wake up in a completely different state, in a completely different town. Because if that happened and you had full memory of everything, it might end up working against you. Your higher self wants it to be a smooth transition. There might be little tiny shifts that you see, but nothing significant. So I always try, as I've gotten better at this, to add my higher self and even my guides into the process of quantum jumping, letting them guide me also into the different realities that I want. Now, some people will say there's no need for you to consciously intend to move into a reality. Just be, Brian. Just be. And that is an elevated, awakened level of consciousness that you do end up reaching. But I am talking about a mode of travel which goes beyond just being. It's like saying, instead of walking across town to get to my destination, I can drive. Quantum jumping is essentially the movement of your vehicle into different realities. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a spiritual thing. In whatever reality you're in, you can just be. You have the power to choose what reality that you move through. And the key component is understanding how the shift happens, what happens when you shift. There is an exchange of energy between two different worlds. Some people like to ask, well, what happens to the other version of you? The other version of you continues going on in the information field. It continues on, but your consciousness exists in this new reality where you're experiencing the out expression of what's in that information field. That's the best way that I can explain it. Some people have said, I don't want to quantum jump because then I'm just stranding those other people on the other side. And that's not necessarily true. It's kind of like you're in a boat and you're pulling a lot of other people along in your wake. So as you quantum jump into other realities, you quantum jump other people into their realities. There are aspects of the quantum jumping experience that are hard to explain, that are unexplainable. You may start voraciously asking me every possible question about what happens to the other body or where you'll go. And sometimes those are questions that can't necessarily be answered. The only things I can explain to you is my own experiences, where I came to utilize these techniques. The biggest problem I have after I started teaching this was that people didn't know what reality they wanted, or they didn't know how to pick the best reality. That's why I have the Aura program, which is alternate universe reality activation and then actualization. Sometimes it's better to take your time in determining which reality that you want to go into. Sometimes you can explore potentials in the quantum field, and I have a couple of meditations that are designed to allow you to explore what potentials are available. Then you can decide to quantum jump. You can quantum jump into any reality, into any place, anywhere, at any time. You can quantum jump into heaven, which is another one of my meditations. It's an amazing way to hack your reality. You have this amazing ability. I'm not asking you to believe anything I'm saying. I'm asking you to test for yourself. Try it out. Sit down, use the energy techniques I'm talking about. For Qigong, the very best place that I would recommend to start is Lee Holden. Troy Casey has some great videos where he uses a lot of these techniques. But Lee Holden is very, very good at introducing Qigong. Very basic, easy movements that are not difficult, not hard, that get the energy moving in your body. If you have awakened your chakras and energy centers, you will be more effective in doing quantum jumps. It's an energy-related activity. And if you have blocks in your energy system, you are blocking the energy that's available to you when quantum jumping. You may find greater success in working on your chakras as well as the Qigong techniques. The key element is there is an energetic exchange, and it can happen in a sleep state, the better that you get at it. But there is a single moment that's so powerful. It's my favorite part of the quantum jump, where it's happening within a millisecond. It's like bam. It's like what Neville Goddard refers to as the secret of the sperm. When they're watching the sperm, when it ferments with the egg, and there's this flash, this explosion, this thing happens. Nobody can explain. That's the point of quantum tunneling, of quantum entanglement, of all these things happening at the same time, where you, as a subatomic particle, change and move and jump into this other dimension or reality, and you have the ability to consciously do it the more that you practice this. Soon I will have some sleep meditations and additional meditations where we're going to use this quantum jump techniques, and we're going to travel across the universe and travel across time into infinite libraries of expansion. Anything is possible for you. You can quantum jump into any reality, and you can have anything and do anything that you want. I want you to feel free with these techniques. I want you to know that it's absolutely possible to achieve anything that you want. Whatever your dream is, it's there for you. It's just a quantum jump away. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to the Reality Revolution.